interact among themselves, live and interact among themselves. And also with the physical environment. And also the physical environment. So this forms an ecosystem. Okay. Now Fatima also gave some examples. For example, terrestrial and aquatic, right? So basically they are mostly divided into two, because that's where animals live. Now there are also aerial animals, but they don't live in air. They fly, but they live either on the ground or on the water. So ecosystem is divided into two: terrestrial. And what comes in terrestrial? What kind of biomes comes in terrestrial ecosystem? Remember we studied biomes, forests, grasslands, and deserts. All of them come in terrestrial ecosystem. Is that clear? And what will come into a aquatic ecosystem?
Sea and oceans.
Oceans, lakes.
Yeah. So can I divide aquatic ecosystem further into two parts? One is freshwater aquatic ecosystem, and another is marine water, right?
Yes.
In freshwater aquatic ecosystems, what do we find? Ponds, lakes. So we will see the animals that live either in ponds, lakes, rivers. They have some similarities. And in marine, what we see? Seas and oceans, right? So they have a different kind of characteristics, these organisms. And I think in the last chapter you have some idea that organisms that live in marine water cannot flourish in fresh water, correct? Osmotic imbalance will be there. So this is, yes, anyone has a question?
No, sir.
Okay, cool. So this is the basic. Okay, now in this chapter what are we going to learn, and what will be our target is to study about the structure and function of ecosystem. So what we basically have written here: forest, grasslands, desert, ponds, lake, rivers, they are just structures, they are places, right? A forest is a place, correct? A desert is a place. When you go to a desert, do you see in front of your eyes an ecosystem functioning? Any one of you who has been to a desert, what do you see in a desert? You might often think that desert is lifeless, right? Yes, Shaheen. Yes, please. Shaheen?
No, I was about to say nothing, like only sand.
Yeah, nothing, right? A desert seems very lifeless from the outside, correct? So it's very difficult to believe that, oh, it is an ecosystem where like organisms interact among themselves, and with physical environment there is a system, whole system of natural activities present. So, but that's true, it is there. Desert just as a place is a structure, but then organisms interacting with themselves and with physical environment make it an ecosystem. Same is for an ocean. Like you go to an ocean and from the surface you will feel that ocean is just lifeless, like vast, serene, open water. Nothing is there, you cannot see anything. But the moment you dive inside, you will see that all sorts of living organisms are interacting, correct? So this is the first thing that we are going to understand and study: how structure and function of ecosystem is formed. Then how does, if it is an ecosystem, there are certain things associated with the ecosystem. First is structure, and its structure, its association with the function, structure function of ecosystem. And by studying this, you will be able to appreciate every ecosystem and understand, okay, every ecosystem, even if it seems lifeless, is not lifeless. Then if it is an ecosystem and if it is self-sustaining itself, it must be producing a lot of things, right? Yes or no? So productivity of an ecosystem, it's very easy to understand what productivity means in a jungle. So you will say that plants do photosynthesis, makes food, then animals eat the plants, that predators eat those animals, and then these predators die, go back into the soil, become, their body gets decomposed, they again are taken up by plants. So that's a very understandable ecosystem. But for every ecosystem, you have to understand the concept. So productivity has to be there. And if there is productivity, there will also be decomposition, correct? Yes or no? So if things are produced, things are also decomposed in an ecosystem. So who are the decomposers of ecosystem? And they are very, very important to study. In every ecosystem, there are some decomposers present that do this. Then the next thing that becomes important, productivity, decomposition. So this is a cycle, and this cycle leads to flow of energy. So energy flow in an ecosystem. What do I mean by energy flow? The same the food web, the food network. Who eats whom and gets energy, and then how that energy is passed to successive organisms. Okay, so these are the major things we will be focusing on, and we will also deal with towards the end nutrient cycling. So nutrient cycling goes hand in hand with kind of energy flow and decomposition and productivity, but just we will target some nutrients and look at their cycling. So I should write nutrient cycling here. For example, you have already you must be knowing about like gaseous cycles like carbon cycle, oxygen cycle, water cycle, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Even nitrogen cycle was there in the syllabus. So you know about these. Okay, so this is what we are majorly going to learn in this chapter. So let's start with the first thing, making ecosystem from the structures, like linking the structure of the ecosystem with the function. So ecosystem, structure and function. Great. So let's build an ecosystem from the scratch quickly. What do you think makes an ecosystem? Let's talk about a forest. So do you think in forest, every organism works like this in the same manner? We are focusing on the structure part here. Do we see all the organisms in a forest are of same size, same shape? If they are plants, all plants are the same. If they are animals, all animals are the same. No, right?
No.
So there is some kind of divide, correct? So in animals, it's easier to understand. So I'll not start with animals because you can say that there are predators, carnivores, herbivores, things like that. And then there are microorganisms or very small organisms, etc. But let's talk about the plants. So forest is majorly made by plants. So as a structure, plants are the structure of a forest. So is there a division of this kind in plants as well? What do you think? Or all plants are the same? They're just big and small. Some are big, some are small, but they're all the same. in function? What do you think, people? No? What? No, what? They're all not the same, you're saying, right? I assume.
Yes.
Yeah, so what's different?
Some plants get the nutrition from different methods. Like most of the plants are autotroph, but some are also insectivorous. Some also like parasitic, like that.
Yes, right. So you touched upon a very good point. Now I will just build on it. So you talked about insectivorous plants. So these plants have to depend on trapping and killing an insect and digesting that insect to get some very major nutrients. So it clearly means, if that kind of adaptation has happened, it clearly means that the plant is not getting enough nutrient from the surrounding, from the soil, because of which it has evolved to start trapping insects, digesting them, and getting those nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, things like that. Correct? Yeah, that's right. So these plants, which are insectivorous plants, are they very big, huge plants? Or they're small plants? They're not very huge, right? Yes,
Yes.
yes. Yeah, they're saying the same thing. Yes, correct. And also in a forest, have you seen that some trees in a forest are very, very tall with canopies? Then there are some which are short, right? And then there are some which are even shorter and some shrubs, correct? So this vertical divide, or this vertical distribution of different species, is known as stratification of plants. That is one thing that makes the structure of a forest or an ecosystem. So stratification means different plants occupy different strata. So this plant occupies this strata, this plant occupies this strata, then this, and there are some which lives in the ground. Now, what are all the plants competing for? I'm assuming that all of them are autotrophs. We are keeping Atif's answer for aside for some time. Let's say all these are autotrophs. So what are they competing for? Sunlight. Correct. Now, what do you think? If they are of different heights and occupy different strata in a jungle, the canopy of the tallest plant will cover most of the forest and will get most of the sunlight. And as we will go down the strata, these plants which are at the very bottom, will they get enough sunlight?
No.
No, right? So, but still they survive, they thrive. In fact, they are very much more in number as compared to very big plants with big canopies. So these are more numerous, as I can say. And this is because, remember, you must be remembering studying that even 10% of the total sunlight is enough for a plant to do photosynthesis, correct? Plants do not need very intense light all the time to do photosynthesis. Yes or no? Do you remember studying that, people?
Yes.
Yeah. So some amount of light does reach, and that's enough during the day for these small plants to do photosynthesis. If not, then they will find other ways to get nutrients. Okay. One of the which is these small plants are mostly taking nutrient from dead and decaying matter around, or they trap insects and become insectivorous plants, like that. So let's first define stratification. Write down. Stratification is the vertical distribution, you know, vertical, right? This is vertical, of different species of different species occupying different levels. Occupying different levels in an ecosystem. Okay, that's called stratification. And it's not like stratification only happens in forests and only happens with plants. It can also happen with animal. And can you give one example where it happens with animals? People? So trees is an example, like different height trees is an example of stratification among plants in a forest. Where do you think we see stratification, where different species of animals occupy different levels in the ecosystem and only live there?
So birds.
Birds. So birds don't live in air, you know, as I said, they fly, but they neither get food from the air, they neither get nutrition, shelter, nothing. It's just the medium of their movement. We often think that birds live in air. They don't live in air. They also come to the ground to eat, you know. They also live in the nests. Migratory birds can just sustain in air for a very long time when they are migrating. And very interestingly, some migratory birds can also sleep while they are flying. So what they do is they have this capability of keeping half of their brain in sleep mode and half is awake, and they continuously just keep flying, you know. And when they are flying, they're not, so after one point of time they are just relying on the air current. There is very less effort to keep flying. Okay, so they go very high. That's why all migratory birds go very high and fly using the air current, so that they can also sleep. Their half of their brain can sleep. Then the other half goes to sleep, and the first half, which has slept, is awake. So that's magnificent. That's also done by some species of dolphins, if I'm not wrong. Yes, dolphins also have this capability to do that. We humans cannot do that because we have not evolved where we constantly need to swim or fly. Okay, we can just stop, rest, and sleep. Yeah. Yeah, but birds in air won't be a good example. Birds fly in different stratas. That is very true. Okay, Atif. So there are birds which cannot fly very high. For example, your pigeons and stuff. Pigeons often fly low around near the ground, but you will see what shaheens and falcons and kites flying very, very high in the sky. Also vultures can go even above the clouds. So vultures rarely get wet in rain. So just before the rains in that region, they just go above the cloud when they are flying. So basically rain is happening beneath them. So there are different stratas in which birds fly, but here we are talking about an ecosystem. So air is not an ecosystem for the birds. Do you understand the difference, Atif? That's very good point that you brought up, but now is it clear?
Yes.
Yes, great. So can you think of any other thing? If not air, then what?
Lions.
Lake ecosystem. Okay. In a lake ecosystem, there are fish. So how does a lake ecosystem works is you will see lake is something like this, right? Lake has a bank, but lake is not like it's just like a bucket. No, right? It becomes deep and there is a deepest point and then it becomes shallow. Do you understand what I'm saying, people? This is how a lake is, correct? So some regions are shallow, whereas some will be the deepest point of the lake. Do you understand? Now in this, there are some fish that will always live around the surface. So they are called surface dweller species. Then some will occupy the middle region. So they will live in this region, okay, the middle region of the lake. They will not come to the surface and they will also not go to the bottom very often. While some organisms, if they are not fish, or like in seas, you will see lampreys and other kind of organisms always living at the seabed. So here also at the lake bed, there will be some species of fish. So they have, this is called a vertical. So stratification is vertical. So here also in a vertical manner, fish, this is species A, this is species B, and this is, let's say, species C. So they are distributed vertically in a lake ecosystem. Okay. Fish shows stratification. Is that clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Now, as we have already discussed, that in an ecosystem, now moving from stratification to the components. Okay. So what are the components of an ecosystem? What do you think makes an ecosystem is what we already discussed. So components of ecosystem. Now this is also for the functionality, the functional components. So we have to look at different aspects. So first aspect of a functional ecosystem is productivity, right? How does the ecosystem produce whatever is required? So that's the first question. Once it has produced, how it decomposes the waste is the second question. Energy flow and nutrient cycling is third and fourth. So let's talk about productivity. What do you understand by productivity? First of all, to produce anything, we need energy, correct?
Yes, sir.
So let's write about the ingredients. For production, what do we need? Of anything. Anything which is produced on the planet needs energy. For production, energy is required. Now, what is the one thing you can think about that provides energy to all ecosystems? What provides energy to all ecosystems?
Producer.
Producers don't provide energy. Producers use energy and produce food. You're talking about plants, right? Plants don't provide energy. Plants use the most of the energy and make food. They are the bawarchis, the chefs of the jungle. They are cooking everything for a buffet so that nature can now enjoy a feast. But where is the energy coming from? Sorry?
Sunlight.
Yes, the solar energy is a constant source of energy for every ecosystem. It's a constant source of energy that never diminishes. Okay, that's why life on Earth is possible, because we have a sun that provides constant energy for every process to happen. Okay, so the basic input and the constant input for every ecosystem, for its function and for its sustenance, is the solar energy. Okay, is that clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Now, because of this solar energy, what happens is what Atif was hinting about, something called primary production. What do we mean by primary production? Any idea, people? what is primary production? What's happening to? Okay, let's define this right down. Primary production is the amount of total biomass. Primary production is the amount of total biomass. Biomass is nothing but just the organic matter. Okay, so you can also write organic matter in place of biomass. So total biomass produced per unit area per given time. Per unit area per given time. You can decide the area and you can decide the time to calculate the productivity. Okay. By plants. So only plants. So what plants produce is called primary production. That's why plants are called primary producers. And how do plants produce anything? Through photosynthesis. Is this clear?
Yes.
And that's why plants are known as primary producers of the ecosystem. Okay, in every ecosystem. Now this production, this productivity is defined in some units. So these units are asked. So what are the units of productivity? What do you think are the units? Look at the definition and tell me what should be the unit. What are we, how are we defining it? Total biomass or organic matter produced per unit area per given time by plants. So what will be the unit?
Meter per second.
Meter per second is speed, no? It's distance upon time. Distance upon time is speed. We're not, I'm talking about productivity. Meter is length and second is time. We're not talking about length here. What are we talking about here? When plants are producing something, what are they producing? Either we can measure it as weight because they are producing organic matter, or as energy because every organic matter, when you degrade it or burn it, produces some energy. So there are two ways by which you should define it. So productivity can either be defined as by weight. If you go by weight, then it will be
kilograms.
yes, kilograms, or so but the SI unit is gram. So let's go to grams. SI unit? People, SI unit?
Sir, SI unit is kilograms, right?
SI unit is gram. G, M and S. Gram, meter, second is SI unit. Okay. Am I like, let's check if you have any doubt. Because now Atif has a doubt, and I think is it kilogram? Just check, okay? But if we are going by weight, then we write it as gram per year. Okay, gram inverse square year inverse year, like, so minus is upon. Okay, or in terms of energy, if you're not going by weight and you're going by energy, whatever is produced, what is the energy in it, then it's called, it's calories, or we call it kilocalories, because energy is always more. Einstein's equation is equal to mc square, right? So even if I take 1, m is 1 gram here, not 1 kg. That's why I thought that, that's why I said that SI unit is gram. Atif, can you confirm it for me? Like, these are very fundamental basics. I can also make some mistakes sometimes. But even if it is, I take it as 1 gram, then I have to multiply it with c square. What is c square? 3 into 10 raised to power 9, I think, whole square. So the energy is going to be this much, even from 1 gram of mass. So it's huge. So for energy, we take kilocalories per meter square per year. Okay, so if I'm writing it, let me not take this sign so that I can write year inverse 1. Okay, let me really, yes. So these are the 2 units. You just have to understand the units. It's difficult to like, don't just mug it up, understand. So this is the unit of productivity in any ecosystem, a jungle. So you will see that you will, it's very intuitive to understand that productivity will be very high in a rainforest or evergreen forest as compared to a desert. So desert will have low productivity turnout, but it's not like it will be 0. If it is 0, it's not an ecosystem. Okay, like space, Mars, barren lands. So 0, almost 0. Is that okay, people?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Noted down everything? Shall I move forward?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we now know that even converting very small amount of mass, lots of energy can be produced in an ecosystem. Okay. Now, how to compare? Now, we cannot just compare energy of the ecosystem on the basis of its like per meter square thing, because some ecosystems are very, very big. Like if you talk about a lake cannot be as big as a forest. In fact, a lake is present inside a forest sometimes, correct? So if I want to compare the productivity of the lake as compared to other forest, as compared to the whole forest, so forest is very big, and if I just go by area, of course I will end up calculating higher productivity for a forest, which might be misleading because we have not normalized it. So to compare productivity of different ecosystems, write down, to compare productivity of different ecosystems, we rely upon 2 things. First, GPP. What is GPP? It's called gross primary productivity. And the second is NPP. called net primary productivity. Now, how many of you have come across these terms in your day-to-day life? Gross and net, gross weight and net weight. Gross and net. Anyone has any idea of gross and net? How many of you have supply or you get domestic fuel cylinders in your home? Do you get a LPG cylinder at your home, people? Yes, Atif gets. Great, Atif. So what is the weight? By weight, how much LPG is inside the cylinder? Any idea? If it is a normal one, which so they comes in different shapes and sizes, but let's say there's one which comes around 14.2 kgs by weight, right? So this is the normal one, the medium one. It has 14.2 kgs of LPG inside it. But when you weigh the cylinder, will it weigh only 14.2 kg? Yeah? Yes, no?
No, sir.
If I put it on the weighing machine, what will be the weight of the whole cylinder, which is filled with LPG? So this 14.2 plus, let's say another 10 kgs, right? Which is the mass of the cylinder itself, the weight of the cylinder itself, right? So it comes out to be somewhere around 25 kgs. Now this 14.2 kg is the net weight of the LPG. And this 25 kgs is the gross weight of the whole cylinder. Do you understand what's the difference? Gross means it includes everything. It's the total. When we talk about gross production, we talk about all the production that happens in a jungle. But does all the production leads into organic matter?
No.
No, right? So where do we lose some organic matter? If you understand that in ecosystem, you can just make your own formula, and that you do not have to just mug up a formula then. So you understood that gross. Okay, let's define both of these. Write down. Gross primary productivity is defined as gross primary productivity of an ecosystem is defined as rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis. Okay, defined as rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis of organic matter. During photosynthesis. Okay, this is gross. And net is defined as, write down, it is the available organic matter available organic matter for the consumption for the consumption to the heterotrophs. Now you all know what are heterotrophs, correct? The herbivorous and the carnivorous, both included. So this is the difference between the definition. This is the total that is produced, and that is what's available to the consumption of heterotrophs. Now can you think of what makes the difference between the two? Now if I want to make a formula to relate GPP with NPP, how I'm going to do it? The simple formula is gross primary production. Okay, when you minus from this gross the respiratory loss. Okay, so everything that is produced, it has a respiration loss in the plant. Okay, respiratory loss, then it is equals to the net primary production. Okay, here the R is the respiration loss in the ecosystem. Correct? So everything that enters, you remember that during respiration CO2 is released, people?
Yes,
When we
sir.
fix carbon during photosynthesis, but then during respiration, when we are fixing carbon and doing photosynthesis, we are bringing carbon molecules from the environment and fixing it in the plant. That is increasing the biomass of the plant. Fruit is becoming bigger, tree is growing, it is storing food in different parts of the body, etc., etc. But when the plant is respiring, it is removing CO2. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so that is the respiration loss in the ecosystem from plants, because plants are the primary producers. So GPP is minus respiration loss is NPP. Okay. Then when this NPP, due to this NPP, when heterotrophs eat whatever is available, which is the net primary production, then heterotrophs like animals, they also grow in mass, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Like when deers eat plant, they also grow in mass, and when lions eat deer, they also grow in mass. So that's called secondary productivity. Okay, so secondary productivity only comes from NPP, and NPP is anyway less than GPP because R is lost to the environment back. So secondary productivity will be even less than the NPP because not everything will contribute to mass, because remember heterotrophs will also do respiration. Yes or no? Do you understand, people? Or is it too complicated? Please revise it today and we'll discuss it tomorrow as well. So just define, this is the last thing that we'll do for today. Write down. Secondary productivity is defined as the rate of production of new organic matter. New organic matter by consumers. So this is not happening by plants or by producers. This is happening by consumers, and consumers means heterotrophs. Okay, both herbivorous and carnivorous. That's called secondary productivity. It comes from NPP because that's available to the heterotrophs to eat. Is that part clear? Is productivity clear to all of you? Where how does ecosystems produce everything they need and how it is produced, from what it is produced?
Yes, sir.
Anyone has any doubts here? So I declare the class. Let's stop here for today and we'll continue. Okay, so before you go on Wednesday, as I have decided, there can be a test. So be prepared because there was for the chapter 5, 6, 11, and 12. Your batch did not give the test. The test might happen on Wednesday, and if not, some topics from which includes decomposition and mainly decomposition and energy flow will be taken by someone else. Okay, is that okay, people?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Like your class will be there, including a test. If there's no test and we decide that your syllabus needs to be covered first, then these two topics will be covered: decomposition and energy flow. Okay, cool. So that's it for today.